Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get to that first question. Jason, can you go over why you prefer the high bar squat as opposed to the low bar squat taught by the starting strength community? The chest down, more horizontal back angle, and hip drive component seems to work very well for me, and I still get very good quad development from doing them. It pairs very well with your philosophy of bringing in more muscle mass to a movement and doing more weight through the effective range of motion of a squatting pattern. I feel like the high bar is still a very good movement, but trumped by the low bar variation, kind of like how the chin-up trumps the pull-up when it comes to vertical pulling movement. No, I think that's a good question, and to be fair, I've really softened up on my stance on Ripto and starting strength in the sense of I used to say, he's probably only maybe 80% right. I'm going to lean in the direction the guy's probably 90% right these days. As far as what Ripto says, he's not 100%, I don't believe, but he's not far off. He's definitely one of the wiser guys out there putting out information with a strong knowledge base, a strong science base, and he's got a lot of really good people on his team with him, helping him these days. So I don't really have a problem with that. If that style of squat seems to work well for you and you are getting really strong at it, you're very comfortable with it, then by all means carry on. If it's working for you, and it seems to work for a lot of people, it's not like there aren't guys squatting over 500 raw who've been using this method, right? In fact, this is what Alan Thrall does. Alan Thrall just went, what, 550? 550 raw? Is that what I think he's at? That's no joke. That's no joke, guys. 550 raw is getting up there. What it comes down to, though, is individual comfort. And I think at a certain point where we start talking about high VAR versus low VAR, really becomes subjective as to bar placement, because where does that line go from one to the other? I do set mine pretty low on my traps. There are people who do a higher high bar than I do, but as far as mine goes, I'm comfortable with it. I like it. I have learned to adjust certain things in my stance over time, but I mean, truth be told, you guys have seen me in my late 30s go over 500 raw doing that style. I'll get there again. My goal is to get there and past that long term. I've also done 605 pretty much doing the same thing when I was younger in my 20s. I'm just comfortable with that style of squatting. It seems to work well with my personal leverages, but that doesn't make it the be-all end-all. I might even go so far as to say that probably more people are going to end up being slightly stronger using the starting strength squat, and man, people are going to be like, oh man, your stance changed on that because you used to disagree there. Yeah, I did used to disagree there, but that's based on my personal bias. If I have to be objective about it, I'm going to say probably more people are going to be stronger and do better using his style of squat than the squat I use personally. But it comes down to different leverages, and look at Jonnie Candito. Jonnie Candito is switching over to a squat style very similar to mine in his training coming back from his injury, because he feels like it's easier on his lower back. He's had a back injury and he feels just as strong at it. However, Jonnie, again, relatively short femurs like me. So, that being said, I think it comes down to individual anatomy, and I think some people are just going to be structurally built to more safely and more efficiently squat without that form of low bar. But I honestly think, and you seem to probably be one of those people, I think more people are going to do better with that style than with high bar. I think more people are. I'll just go ahead and say that, and it does seem to work very well for people on their program. The proof is in the pudding. All right, next question. Hey Jason, I know that doing partial reps with a heavy weight can damage the joints and eventually lead to injury. I just wanted to get your opinion on doing exercises like plyometric lunges and squats with weights. Would they pose the same risk as doing partial reps too, or are they perfectly safe? Thanks. You know what? The more I look at it, I don't really like the idea of jumping squats. I don't like the idea of jumping. That's what a plyometric squat is. All the benefits that you're seeking to get from this, you could get from learning to do a power clean or a full clean. All right. If you are doing these to keep your explosive strength high, which is the point. Meaning, if you're gaining strength, you want to maintain your explosiveness in proportion to your strength. If that's your goal, and that's the only reason you would do a jumping squat or a plyometric squat, power cleans seem to do that very, very well. And power snatches aren't terrible at it. So the question becomes, if you're doing this purely for an athletic component because you need to maintain your explosiveness in proportion to your strength, why aren't you using the proper tools available and developed by strength and conditioning coaches around the world for this? Why would you ever do something as silly as a jump squat or a plyometric squat where you're loading the spine up with a weight on top of the spine that's going to bounce? Because if you're decently strong, you're going to have a lot of weight up there on a jump squat. You're going to have a lot of weight on there. People say, well, I'm doing it with a lightweight. Well, you're not getting any benefits, because if it's too light relative to your work capacity, it's also a complete waste of time. Why utilize some bastardization of a movement like this when we have perfectly valid tools for this that have worked in strength and conditioning circles for decades and have produced some of the best athletes walking the face of the earth? All right, this is a proven effective method. Do the actual legitimate explosive lifts. They're safer. Yes, they have a learning curve, but they're safer, and they're going to give you everything that you're seeking to get from something like a plyometric squat. I think these plyometric squats and all this jumping and leaping and a lot of this functional patterns and functional strength that people are trying to promote now actually isn't functional. It's basically just a clown show. That's what it is. It's a circus. It's not real training, and it's not giving them the benefits they think it is. All right, next question. How do you feel about doing negatives on bench press to increase strength? My bench was plateaued and this has helped. My reason behind this was the progression people use from going from a negative chin up to full chins. Is there any scientific backing to this? Thanks. All right, brother, this is one of those cases where you're like, well, I tried something and it worked. Did you isolate all other variables? And the other thing is, did you isolate time? Meaning, okay, you'd been working on your bench and then you adjusted something in it and your bench finally went up, but was it because you did slightly more work? Would you have gotten the same benefit had you just rested an extra 5 or 6 minutes and added one more heavy set of bench at the end of each workout? All right, you see the point I'm making here? It wasn't the fact that you did negatives. Now, how do I feel about this? I think for someone not strong enough to bench press the bar, this is a valuable tool. Just like a negative chin up for people who aren't strong enough to do a chin up. But if you're under any illusions that there's something magical about the eccentric rep that carries over to the concentric rep more than just doing a lighter concentric rep, then you are sadly mistaken. The reason we use eccentric reps on exercises where the lightest weight we have available is too heavy. In the case of a bench press, maybe your gym only has 45-pound bars and you're not strong enough to bench 45. You weigh too much to do a chin up with your body weight. That's your limiting factor. Is because we are about up to 20% stronger on an eccentric rep. In other words, you can lower under control up to, for depending upon the person, 20% more weight than you can lift. In other words, it takes the same amount of muscle fibers, right? The same amount of muscle fibers to lift 20 to 30% less weight than it does to lower that weight with some degree of control. So that being said, if the 45-pound bar is a bit too heavy for you, but you might be capable of benching 35 pounds, you can lower the 45-pound bar and use that to build strength. It will not build strength as fast as if you actually do full reps with concentric and eccentric. All right, it's not going to produce the same result that will, but you're just not strong enough to do it, and that's why it works. I absolutely would not recommend it for a bench press building tool, particularly with heavy weights. It's just excessively risky with no payoff. Just bench more. Or if you want to use an accessory, then add in an accessory. All right, but there's no need to do this. I don't think it's going to help you as much as you think it is. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. You have recently said in your video about Johnny Candito that your technique for the overhead press was not proper and may have contributed to your minor injury. Does this mean the way you told novices to overhead press in your demonstration video is incorrect? And if so, can you explain how the overhead press should be done? Some of the basics in that video were still fine, but yeah, I think the better way would be to start watching what I'm doing now. Now, a lot of people said, hey, could you remake some of the how-to videos based upon different things in your own training? And eventually I will. Eventually I will, but right now, while I'm training in gyms, doing that is really going to be difficult when I can't just explain stuff on the fly and go with the flow. When I made those original videos, I was training at home in a garage gym. All right. My current home, I don't have a yard or a garage large enough to do something like that again. Eventually, in the long term, when I get an actual house, I will have a home gym again. I'll build a home gym. And you know what? I'll start doing a lot more demonstrations again, and we'll discuss a lot of that stuff. But that's going to be a while. It's a long-term goal, but that's going to be a while. Once I'm back in that same sort of situation again, making that style of video will be a lot easier, and I'll be more than happy to go over a lot of that. But people need to remember there's already a lot of really fantastic tutorials on how to perform these lifts on YouTube. There are some actual legitimate coaches who have good instructional videos on performing all this stuff. And yeah, I could definitely add my own because, I mean, sure, there's a market to be had for that. I'd make money doing it. But I do want people to know that in the absence of me putting out more technique videos, there are some really good ones already out there. I mean, you got Alan Thrall. I mean, I talked about Alan Thrall the other day. He actually has some good videos on teaching form. He actually has some really good videos on it. I wouldn't rule him out as a source for that. And I hate to send some of, my views and potential money of mine over to someone else, but, he's doing a good job with that. So, I just gotta call it like it is. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.